Planet Dolan.
From grabbing a cactus to smoking poison ivy, the Planet Dolan crew reenacts some of the best true stories from Reddit about the stupidest things we ever did as kids. I'm Cookie, and today I'll be your narrator. This story was submitted by Stew. When he was 7, Gergak wanted vampire teeth. Not being the brightest child in the world, he grabbed a nail file and filed his canines down to a point. He filed them until they were unbelievably sharp, although the teeth he filed down weren't his canines. Luckily, Gergak stopped filing before he hit the nerves. While looking at his handiwork in the mirror, he noticed that one tooth was filed better than the others. Despite not filing down to his nerves, Gergak still felt pain from scraping the file against his gums and making his teeth radiate heat. The dentist told his parents that, since he didn't hit the nerves, there wasn't anything to be worried about. The only bad thing about Gergak's stunt was that he looked like an idiot. Over time, his vampire teeth smoothed out and are no longer sharp. This story was submitted by Marco Faga. A stupid thing that Dolan did when he was little was eat baby powder. Being a little boy at the time, he thought it tasted very good. His mom freaked out and called a poison control center, but in the end everything turned out okay. Although he never ate baby powder again, Dolan began to eat toilet paper. He would grab half a square and let it dissolve in his mouth. It's something he continues to eat to this day, although he only does it once a year. He admits that it's weird, but it tastes really good. This story was submitted by Nyalethotep. Something that Hellbent did when he was a teenager was not only stupid, but made him feel awful for a while. One day, he decided it would be a good idea to smoke poison ivy. Shortly after smoking it, his face swelled up horribly. He was miserable for weeks, particularly because he couldn't miss any school. He went to school looking like the Elephant Man. Hellbent just listened to his MP3 player while keeping his head down and reading books. Doing all that helped him survive those weeks of misery. Needless to say, Hellbent learned his lesson. This story was submitted by Guy Tarzan. Salty Squid was curious about what would happen if he tossed a match on a pile of gunpowder. So, while at a friend's house, he stole a bunch of shotgun shells and bullets from his friend's father. He used a pair of pliers and screwdrivers to pry the ammunition apart so he could get to the powder. Once he got them open, Salty Squid poured the gunpowder into a plastic bag. Afterwards, him and his friend went outside where Salty Squid poured 1.5 cups of gunpowder on the sidewalk. He lit the match and tossed it on top of the pile, creating a smoke cloud as big as a small house. Salty Squid thought it was worth the risk. This story was submitted by Concentrated Failure. When he was young, Derek did some really stupid things. For one, he liked to play with matches. It wasn't the fire he liked, but the burning smell of the match. He would light the match but immediately blow it out and smell it. Once he was done, he would throw the match in his bedroom closet. When he was caught by his parents, he received one hell of a spanking. The punishment didn't work because 2 years later, Derek and a friend of his set the woods on fire. Him and his friend were caught kicking dirt on the flames and peeing on them, desperately trying to put them out. There was also a time when he was 4 years old and Derek saw a man in the field across the road from his house. Thinking it was his dad, he crossed the busy road. Every time he looks back on the stunts he pulled during his childhood, Derek considers himself very lucky to be alive. This story was submitted by Fropits. Zaragamba loved riding his bike when he was a kid. One day, he decided to ride his bike down a big, steep hill. Halfway down, he put on his brakes, but only the front ones. That caused him to fly over the handlebars and tumble down the rest of the hill. When he reached the bottom, his bike landed on top of him. Zaragamba couldn't believe how stupid he had been to only apply the front brakes, especially when he'd been going down very fast. This story was submitted by Noru Isumi. As a little kid, James Shark loved Band-Aids. It got to the point where he would intentionally hurt himself just so he could get one. One time, he decided to jump off the sofa in the living room. He ended up getting bruised almost all over his body, but James Shark didn't mind. All he wanted was a Band-Aid, but, unfortunately for him, his parents only used Band-Aids on bleeding wounds. Is that not how they're meant to be used? Unlucky! This story was submitted by Leader Hydrogon. When he was little, Spinal Palm wondered what his pee tasted like. For a long time, his pee wasn't the regular yellow color, but clear. Curious to see if it tasted like water, Spinal Palm grabbed a water bottle and peed into it. Later, he drank it and was surprised to learn that it did, indeed, taste like water. He wasn't sure if only his pee tasted that way, or if pee tasted that way in general. Either way, Spinal Palm never drank his pee again. This story was submitted by Takal. Sid's second grade class had been growing tadpoles for a long time. His class waited patiently for them to transform into frogs. Every day they would make the trek out of the classroom and to the tank to check on them. It was an exciting time for everyone. One day, one of Sid's friends, Lost Fox, told him that he thought that some furniture polish spray, which had been left next to the tank, was what was used to help the tadpoles turn into frogs. So, Sid stupidly grabbed the furniture polish and sprayed it in the tank. Later, there were 12 dead tadpoles and a sparkling tank interior. Sid got into more trouble with the school leadership than he had ever thought possible. To this day, he still feels bad about killing those tadpoles, even though he was a naive little boy who was only trying to help them along. This story was submitted by CEO of Dadass. Nice. One day, Martian was outside when he saw a cactus. Being young and not knowing where the cactus was, he grabbed it. After letting go of it, he looked down at his hands and saw nothing but spines. It certainly wasn't a fun time for Martian, as he had to have all the spines pulled out of his hands. Needless to say, he learned a very valuable lesson about cacti that day. I remember something stupid I did when I was a child. I grew up in a household with a lot of boys, so when I would see them shaving, I was like, wow, why do you do that? And they would just kind of laugh it off and walk away. I was at the bathroom sink, and I pick up the razor, and I'm like, I want to shave just like them. So I shave my upper lip, and I was only like 7, I think, and I peeled the skin on my upper lip where I was bleeding, and I was just like, Dad! And just freaking out, and I wound up getting grounded for that, so maybe don't press so hard on the razor, and you should be able to shave yourself just fine. This is Cookie, signing off. Goodbye!